met her in the fall. He took her to a movie, and when they done it all, he took her to...
Hello and welcome to the Fabulous Picture Show. I'm Amanda Palmer and here's a reason to be cheerful. We're joined by screenwriter Paul Viragh and actor Andy Serkis, and we'll be screening their hugely entertaining new film,
Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll.
Andy is Ian Dury, whose sex and drugs and rock and roll turned him into a legend of British pop.
Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll.
We hear this incredible actor capture Dury's total lack of singing talent.
Seeing Piccadilly, Fanny Smith and Willie being rather silly and porridge jokes.
Also on the show, the director of sweaty tank drama Lebanon just might have breached the Geneva Convention.
Each actor was left alone in a small, dark and very hot container.
But first, Iranian director Bahman Ghobadi is one Persian cat you should know about.
اشکان ببینی شعر خوبه واسه یکی از ترک‌های آلبوم بذاریم؟
اینم سیاهه.
کجاش سیاهه؟
تو زنده نوشتیش؟
No One Knows About Persian Cats follows Nagar and Ashkan.
تمام دخترها و زنایی که ممنوع صدا هستن کو؟
They're trying to put a new band together in Iran.
احتمال داره بریم اونور چند تا کنسرت بدیم، چند تا کار ضبط بکنیم.
They're just two of an estimated 2,000 underground musicians jamming in guerrilla recording studios as they hustle around Tehran in search of false travel documents.
ویزای اروپایی 5 میلیون تومان. ویزای امریکایی از 12 میلیون تومان.
Their story is all too familiar for many Iranian artists banned from exploring certain subjects. And director Bahman Ghobadi is one of them. He failed to get permission to shoot his previous film.
I was so sad, and I take my suitcase and I wanted to go to Europe forever.
Until he met the musicians in Persian Cats.
When I saw them, how they can play music without promotion, without the money, without the budget, I told myself, okay, Bahman, try and find new way. You can make an underground film like underground music.
Been there alone, I've been there with you. Believe me, out there, there's a jungle.
The film was co-written by Ghobadi's fiancée, Roxana Saberi, an American journalist sentenced in Tehran to 8 years in prison on espionage charges. The film premiered in Cannes last year, just 2 days after her release on a suspended sentence.
خدا رو من تو چشمای دوستم دیدم وقتی که مثلا تو زندان دیدمش.
I saw God in the eyes of my fiancée when I visited her in jail, and it changed me a lot.
Music for me is like part of God. Art is like part of God. It's not the music and art is separate of God. Impossible.
Ghobadi first found fame portraying the lives of the Kurdish minority, of which he's a member. Numbering over 35 million, Kurds are the largest ethnic group in the world to have no country. His debut told the story of Kurdish children making a risky living as smugglers. His Turtles Can Fly was the first film to come out of post-Saddam Iraq. Set in a small Kurdish village just days before the US-led invasion, the film questioned the media's representations of the war. With Persian Cats, Ghobadi expands his themes beyond Kurdish concerns.
I made this film just for these people. Just how can I help them? Why the government? Why they don't give them the money and go to make a travel in the world and knows music in the world? With the music, we can change life.
Shot illegally in 17 days, the film questions whether exile is a price worth paying for artistic freedom.
I was imprisoned for 21 days a year and a half ago for playing some rock gig.
Nobody wants to stay in the underground, and people just, when you want to do something and you're looking for your own peace of mind, your own privacy, and you go where you can find it.
ما کار خلافی نمی‌کنیم، داریم موزیک میزنیم
آزارم به کسی نمیرسه.
If I stay here, I'm loyal to my culture, I'm loyal to my country, but then if I leave, I can have the opportunities to promote myself.
But Nagar and Ashkan are glad to have worked with Ghobadi, who they think is an important director.
He's going to do a revolution for the freedom of arts. I think he's doing a really great job in Iran's history.
The top prize at the last Venice Film Festival went to a film set entirely within a space of just a few cubic meters. It's the tense and sweaty Lebanon.
הטנק הזה גמור. אין לי אף שעון למצב נורמלי כאן.
June 1982, the first Lebanon war. An Israeli tank is stranded behind enemy lines. The fraught and emotional Lebanon takes place entirely within the confines of that tank.
Each actor was left alone in a small, dark and very hot container for a few hours. And so instead of explaining the claustrophobic experience and the darkness and the heavy heat, I let him go through it.
אני לא הולך למות כאן בגללך!
טוב, אסי, די, יאללה, תירגע.
מה תירגע? אם הוא לא יתאפס כאן על עצמו, אנחנו כולנו נשרף פה. של דם עוד...
תלחץ אתה על ההדק, בסדר?
מה?
יש לך הדק, נכון?
נו, אז מה?
תלחץ עליו אתה. תן לי דוגמה אישית.
The war imposes a situation in which you have to take a decision. Either you look after yourself and protect your own life, or you are moral. No other option. It's an illusion.
תגיד לי מה, אתה נותן לי פה פקודות? אתה שומע אותו? נותן לי פה פקודות?
זה פקודות, עזוב אותי. עזוב אותי. רק אל תפיל עליי את החיים ואת המוות של כולם פה, כי גם לך יש הדק.
If you decide to be moral, you probably end up dead.
The 1982 war in Lebanon led to the deaths of more than 17,000 Lebanese and approximately 675 Israeli soldiers. Lebanon is the latest in the line of outstanding films about the conflict made by former members of the Israeli army. Such as Waltz with Bashir about the 1982 Sabra and Shatila massacre. And Beaufort, set during the Israeli withdrawal from Lebanon during the year 2000.
In the Lebanon war, duels didn't exist. The enemy was wearing jeans, so you couldn't see the difference between soldier and civilian. That's what makes this war chaotic and maybe psychologic to my generation. Lebanon is not a country, Lebanon is not a war, Lebanon is a generation.
In part two, we're screening Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll. It's a biopic on Ian Dury, who was
one of the UK's greatest performers, lyricists, and drew on so many different styles and created a whole movement, possibly could be called the godfather of funk and punk.
Wow, that is Paul, by the way. He's a screenwriter, and I think you recognise this guy. This is Andy Serkis, who gets to play him. What fun!
Yeah, no, it was an extraordinary task. Essentially a father and son story, but about a man who's a creative obsessive and, living life to the full and being magnificent, but also not taking too many prisoners en route.
A fantastic lyricist who brought things into our language like...
Hit Me With a Rhythm Stick and Clever Trevor and Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll and
Reasons to Be Cheerful.
And Reasons to Be Cheerful.
Lots of reasons to be cheerful in part two. Join us then.
He met her in the fall.
Welcome to this special screening here at the Fabulous Picture Show. Could we please welcome Andy Serkis and Paul Viragh. We're very lucky we're going to see a fantastic biopic on Ian Dury. Can we please introduce your film?
I was looking for kind of music from the 70s and looking at all those stories. And I suddenly went, oh my God, Ian Dury. Not only was he not particularly good looking, he was actually disabled. He couldn't sing, and he became a massive phenomenon. So I went, Andy, what do you think about doing Ian Dury?
And I said, that's a ridiculous idea. We'll have to do it. One of the main challenges was, of course, not to do a standard rock biopic and to pick out the essence and the energy of the man.
So you're quite happy to play something that wasn't very good looking.
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
Yeah,
Sorry, mate, sorry.
All right, the film is
Seemed like a good idea
called...
at the time.
The film is called Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll. So we're going to rock and roll. Enjoy the film. Talk to you afterwards. Thanks a lot.
1, 2, 3, 4. Sex and drugs and rock and roll.
Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll celebrates the colourful life of musician Ian Dury.
Sex and drugs and rock and roll.
Despite being stricken with polio as a child,
It attacks the nervous system. Here, here, and here.
which left him disabled for life. Dury went on to become one of the innovators of the 1970s British music scene with his band The Blockheads. Directed by Matt Whitecross and written by Paul Viragh, this offbeat biopic explores the battleground between art, love and family.
He needs a father! Your father, I'm his father! He needs a father who's around!
Dury is played by Andy Serkis. His ever versatile face brought us characters like King Kong and the Lord of the Rings, Gollum.
You don't have any friends. Nobody likes you.
Way before Gollum, you were very much always known in the theatre for your ability to take on characters. This was an incredibly challenging role. You can see that, can't you? There's everything, the physicality, his character. What makes you choose these roles?
I love people who will go to the very, very edge and peer over the precipice and not be afraid of doing that. And here is a man who was prepared to die on stage, and I think that's absolutely right. Every single time, every single fibre of his being when he is out on stage. The amount of commitment to the moment, to creating something fresh and unique, you know, that's what charged me with the desire to play him. We shot for 4 days on the gig stuff, and at the end of that 4 days, I was just like trashed. I mean, I could barely walk and couldn't speak.
Don't do nothing that is cut price, you know what, it'll make you...
But I just thought, this is someone who went out for 3 years and did that every night. How did he do it? I mean, it's just extraordinary.
By the way, everybody, Paul was an actor for 18 years, is that right? So, and
Pain. Happiness.
Mr. Goldsmith.
I'm sorry I'm late.
That's all right.
one of the things that you've both said to me is that you shared the commonality was your relationship with your father, certainly in the relationship that Ian had with his.
Yes, there was a kind of like, you know, this, as usual, in most interesting characters, a bit of a contradiction. There's the kind of rock and roll side, and over here, there's the kind of family side. There's the person, there's the father, there's the husband, there's the lover. And on the front of his very, very successful album, New Boots and Panties, is a picture of his son and him in front of a lingerie shop. In the background, there is a tailor's dummy wearing a three-piece suit, and that's what Ian's dad used to wear. And suddenly for me, there came this kind of thing, because I could see the little boy, because that's like me, you know, and I could see the kind of powerful father figure, because that's like my dad.
Give me your best shot, come on.
And in the time that me and Andy have been close friends, we've both become fathers, and we've both seen the joy of it and the difficulty of it.
No, you got to stand on your own.
At that point, I thought, you know, this is really some way of getting into Ian and bringing him back to life.
I wanted to ask, there was something very special about the storytelling approach and the way it sort of unapologetically sticks two fingers up at what you might expect from sort of a normal narrative flow. I wonder how much of that was in the script.
A lot of the visuals of the film came from Paul. Well, from discussions that we had collaboratively, but, for instance, you know, you'd never think of doing Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick at the bottom of a swimming pool, but because it's about Ian's state of mind, Paul thinks naturally, oh, well, let's do Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick at the bottom of a swimming pool.
Hit me with your rhythm stick. It's nice to be a lunatic. Hit me! Hit me!
You actually sing. This is you, isn't it?
It's true.
My goodness me. What a talent you are. Give us a little bit of a tune. Come on. I have to ask.
Well, I mean, one of my favourite songs. If I was to be pushed.
I'll go get a coffee. I'll be back in a minute.
This is Reasons to be Cheerful. I love it because it's, you know, the things that mean so much to him. And it goes, Summer Buddy Holly, the working folly, good golly Miss Molly and boats. Hammersmith Pally, the Bolshoi Bally, jump back in the alley, and nanny goats. 18-wheeler scammels, Dominica camels, all other mammals plus equal votes. Seeing Piccadilly, Fanny Smith and Willie, being rather silly and porridge oats. A bit of grin and bear it, a bit of come and share it. You're welcome, we can spare it. Yellow socks, too short to be haughty, too nutty to be naughty. Going on 40, no electric shocks. Juice of a carrot, the smile of a parrot, little drop of claret, anything that rocks. Elvis and Scotty, days or night spotty, sitting on a potty, curing smallpox. Reasons to be cheerful. Part 3.
You are bringing this guy to the fore that many people, certainly beyond Britain, would never have even known existed. Yet he inspired a lot of bands. I mean, I read that Madness said we wouldn't have existed if not for him.
So I think that's absolutely right. He didn't feel he had the greatest voice in the world, so his way was to perform a song. He wrote these kind of lyrical stories of strange and, you know, offbeat characters. What Andy just did there is like as good as rap. You know, it is what it is, and it's like, you know, it's early, it's years before. So today, for instance, you know, people like Lily Allen, you know, Blur, that kind of culture that has come up from that has definitely, you know, he started something.
No, Coward was a charmer.
This is ridiculous, man. It sounds like a bad version of Barry White.
There's so many dark sort of moments throughout his life, and you know, and then also he's kind of got this complete clown about him. Do you think he was sort of really aware of this kind of tragic comedy that he creates around himself?
Get out of the studio.
Look, see, look.
I think he's absolutely aware of his power as a performer, as an orator, as a manipulator. You know, he can turn the energy, he can change the temperature of a room very, very easily. There were times where he'd, you know, literally, if he wasn't the centre of attention in a room, he'd unclip his caliper and fall over, and then expect people to pick him up, you know, or start a fight.
Barry White, I'll give you Barry White.
But also what we tried to get at in the film were those vulnerable moments where he was absolutely, you know, stripped bare of all of that, all of those personas.
I'd just give him birth, any chance you could keep the noise down.
I just want to know, Andy, how you get in character every day for Ian Dury.
I was going to say for you for a moment.
Yeah. How do I get in character every day? Well, I make the sandwiches, I get in the car, I get kids out and scream at them. Well, there are different ways into the character. I mean, this was obviously kind of physically. Ian had a very, very particular gait, and so when I put on every day, I'd put on the caliper, and there was a particular ritual to doing that, and there's a particular ritualistic way of standing up, sitting down, moving around, holding on to people, and then before each take, I mean, actors work in different ways. Some will be joking away till the very, very last second, and then can go into it. I can't. I do have to kind of. Just create a moment of space to plug into the temperature of the scene or the temperature of the moment.
The writer sat scratching his arse, wishing he wasn't a middle class.
You know, it's like the tip of an iceberg, really. And this comes from working with directors like Mike Leigh, for instance, where you've done an enormous amount of work. It's all the preparatory work which sits there. And what you actually ever see on screen in the moment is that.
I've met someone else. We should think about getting a divorce. It would be better for you, better for the kids, better for Denise.
It's far too logical.
These two managed to get a lot of people to collaborate with them and work on a tiny budget. But on the side of all of that, they also had a training program as well, didn't you?
Yeah, we and the credit for this really must go to I think to Damien Jones, our producer. He was very, very determined that we would have a kind of like an attachment to the project of a company called 104 Films, who work with a lot of disabled filmmakers, and we were all shadowed. Every department was shadowed, and we have you know, more disabled actors and performers in this film than any British film I can think of in, you know, the past 25 years. And we were very lucky as well in that we went and we found a very, very talented young actor to play young Ian, because we really wanted a disabled actor to play that, and we were just, you know, hugely lucky to find Wesley Nelson, who's an amazing talent.
Eat your fish.
No. It's horrible.
What did you say? You do as you're told.
It's a really interesting debate about non-disabled actors playing disabled characters. There are a number of disabled actors, some of whom were, you know, not particularly happy about a non-disabled actor playing Ian Dury, who for many of them is a great kind of heroic figure. But in many ways, you know, it would have been tough to find a disabled actor, I think, who you know, who looked a bit like Ian, who had the same sort of disability, and also to get the film made, it was you know, it was necessary to have someone, I suppose, with some profile to play the role. It was part of my job to understand his disability but kind of and work on it and the physicality and so on, but without kind of lingering on it in a sort of fetishistic way.
You are amazing, Andy, in that role. So I just want to thank you all for coming today, and especially you two for coming and bringing your fantastic film. Thank you very much, Andy Serkis.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you, Paul.
So do you always wear those glasses?
For your protection, my dear. Very, very good with women.
Well, that's it for this fabulous picture show. Hit me with your
rhythm stick.
Hit me.
Hit me.
Oh dear. See you on the next. See you on the next fabulous picture.
1, 2, 3. I'm Spasticus. 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 Autisticus. I'm Spasticus. 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 Autisticus.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this film and why?
I'd probably give it an 8, just on the enjoyment factor.
I would give it a solid 7.
It's got loads of energy. I really like the energy to the film.
I really felt for him as a child growing up with his disability.
I found it to be quite a sort of realistic look at that chapter in time.
This tour de force from Andy Serkis really nailed Ian Dury.